So that night, about 12 o'clock, we're waiting outside the Olympia Theater to get a taxi, because we were so poor. We didn't have a car. We didn't have anything. You know, we had just barely gotten into that house. So as we were waiting near an outdoor cafe, I asked Prabhupada, I said, Prabhupada, I know you're tired. Would you like to sit down here? So he just looked at the chair and he looked at the place and said, what is this place? I said, Prabhupada, this is an outdoor cafe. Cafe? They are drinking and smoking here? I said, yes, Prabhupada. He said, Guru cannot sit in such a place. So I felt, wow, I said, this is amazing. every time I talk to Prabhupada, he instructs me about Krishna consciousness. Like, it was very, very, like, wonderful. So I said, okay, Prabhupada, I'm sorry. I thought maybe you were tired. He says, that's all right. I said, Guru cannot sit in such a place. So the taxi came, we went back. So on the way back, I asked Shyam Sundar, I said, you know, it's 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock. Should we get up in time for Mangal Arati? He said, well, devotees should sleep 6 hours. So you just sleep 6 hours, you can get up. I said, is that all right? He said, yes, that's okay. So with that understanding, we took rest. So at 4:35 in the morning, someone is, you know, like pounding my arms. Get up, you nonsense, get up! And I woke up, you know, it was like from a bad dream. I said, what's the matter? He said, you're nonsense, Prabhupada is so angry. I said, why? What happened? He said, because there's no Mangal Arati, the devotees aren't up. I said, oh my God. I said, you know, I was really like confused, you know. So I ran downstairs, and some devotees had just started, you know, doing a kirtan, and everyone was looking at me with dirty looks, and why did you let this happen? You know, I tried to explain, but then I just kept quiet, you know, I didn't say anything. And then someone grabbed me and said, come on, hurry up. I said, what's the matter? I said, we just started Mangal Arati. Prabhupada wants you to come on a morning walk. So I went outside, and there was Prabhupada waiting, and we started walking. So that was wonderful. All of a sudden, we're in the fresh air. It's about 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. It's a very nice spring day. And at that time, Prabhupada started speaking, and he said, Shyam Sundar, why are the grihastas in Maya? He said, why are all the grihastas in Maya? So Shyam Sundar, he didn't say anything. And then Prabhupada stopped, and he looked at us, and he smiled. He said, because that is their position.
He did describe sometimes what it was like to be on the, coming here to the United States, that it wasn't all easy for him. And not only was he sick, and he had to cook for himself, and he felt out of place, but that even after he got here, at first he had some doubts. And the way he would counteract the doubts is to go to the shipping line and find out the times when the ships would return to India. And the customs guy, the customs man said, Swamiji, you have been coming here for a year and looking at the times, but when are you going? And he would say that.
Then he said, when I first came to America, my plan was just to make sannyasis. And he looked at us. We were all quiet. And then he said, but that is not possible. Then I was thinking, let them get married. Husband gives wife one child. Wife goes to Vrindavan, husband takes sannyas. Then he looked at us again and he said, but that's not possible. I said, that's all right, you can chant Hare Krishna. So we were all like in a state of shock. So then we kept walking, and then Prabhupada said, he stopped and he looked at the house. He said, this house is first class. And he looked at the fence, and he said, in India, only the best gentlemen have house like this, with this, you know, it wasn't a fence, it was a iron fence, you know, nicely painted and everything. And he said, and look inside the garden, it's perfect. And look at the house, it's perfect. So he said, it's too perfect. So, you know, I was shocked when he said that. He says, too perfect, because the gentleman in this house cannot leave the situation. When he dies, he will take birth again. And he'll take birth as a dog or a bug to continue his attachment. Then he said, Griha Chetra Satapta, Griha Chetra Satapta Vitar, Janasi Mohayam Ahamameti. He said, it's too nice, and he will continue his attachment. He said, this is the flaw of material life.
So, you know, we went on, many things were discussed, and, you know, here I'm living with a head full of ideas and charged with a dozen of projects, and I just arrived, you know, I'm totally overwhelmed. I walked out, and, you know, the first person I saw is like almost the first person I knew from America that I hadn't seen for a long time, and was Devananda, who was at that time already initiated as a sannyasi, Devananda Swami. And, you know, how are you? You know, and we were like, you know, hugging each other and obeisances and trying to catch. It was like I was there standing on the steps for about, I don't know, a minute maybe. He just started to talk. And all of a sudden, Satsrupa, who was Prabhupada's personal attendant at the time, comes running out. And he's like, look, you know, coming towards me with this sense of alarm. He says, Bharadwaj, please come right away. Prabhupada wants to, there's something he needs to tell you. Please come back. Some say, Devananda, you know, excuse me, I have to go. Prabhupada's calling me. We'll talk later. And I was, you know, literally, maybe a minute and a half I was there. And I'm running back into Prabhupada's quarters, and which were at the end of this long walkway. And, you know, I'm running in, and, you know, I come into the room, I pay my obeisances. And I look up, and Prabhupada is looking at me very sternly. And he says, so, we have discussed so many things. You have so many things to do. I don't think you have any time to stand around and talk.
Prabhupada wanted Indians to get involved in every aspect. He didn't just see them as people who could give money, although a lot of the gentlemen that he was dealing with were businessmen, but a lot of sadhus came to him also, a lot of very religious people. And Prabhupada himself was, before he took up the life of a sadhu, he was an aristocratic gentleman, and he moved in that circle. And he was, you know, these were principled people. So there was one man, Mr. Brijratan Mota, who was a very big industrialist, and he was also the husband of the daughter of the leading Birla, which was the biggest family in India at that time. So this man would regularly come and sit with Prabhupada and listen to him, and he would chant a little bit of japa, and he would give Prabhupada advice on, and Prabhupada would listen very carefully to his advice because he was a good businessman. And throughout the construction of the Bombay temple, of course, we spent a lot of money, and invariably, of course, we made a few mistakes here and there and got cheated. So at the end, when it was time to pay all the final bills and deal with all the contractors, because you've got to, you know, go over the contract, go over the work done, and see actually if there was any cheating involved, etc. To our amazement, Prabhupada turned everything over to Mr. Mota, gave him the final authority on who to pay and how much to pay and how much to cut. And of course, he saved us a lot of money. So I think there were many examples like that. In his writings, Prabhupada talked about the construction of Bombay Temple, and he wrote a letter to Giriraj about Sumati Morarji and told him that just form a committee and give the charge of building the temple to the members. He said, our business is preaching. We should not get entangled in these mundane business affairs. The members they've invested in us, and we're investing our preaching in them, so give them responsibility.